Some of you guys might remember that I talked about not too long ago during my iNeo DS thoughts video that I wish Anbernic would make their own DS handheld, primarily because they make some pretty decent stuff and it's usually significantly more affordable than whatever iNeo produces. And I talked about how I wanted it to be around $100, maybe like $150, so you have the power to actually drive the games you would want to play in the dual screen format. Little did I know, Anbernic was actually already working on that very precise thing. But color me surprised when they make their announcement and they're touting that it is sub $100. That could mean that it's $99.99, but still technically under $100. But what's more likely is that it's using the same chipset we've seen in a ton of their other sub $100 handhelds, that being the H700, found in the RG34XX, the SP, the 40XX, all these different kinds of relatively basic handhelds with a same cookie cutter chipset, just thrown into the different formats and the different styles of handhelds so everybody can have what they want with the same level of performance as everybody else. Which isn't inherently bad. They're pretty solid handhelds, and you can choose the way you want to play. Do you want to maximize portability and save some money? Do you want to spend a little bit more, get a bigger screen, maybe something in the landscape format? It's a really smart way to operate your business. But it does come with the downside of not being necessarily that powerful because of it. The H700 chipset is plenty powerful for most average gaming, and you can certainly play Nintendo DS. But I don't think you'll be able to play 3DS for a few different reasons. One, the thing is simply not powerful enough to handle it. On top of that, if it is running the H700 chipset, and it's sort of in this same line of like the basic, XX series handhelds, it's going to be running their Linux-based operating system, which isn't particularly great, which could mean better integration with dual screen and emulator stuff, but it could also end up being kind of horrible. It is important to know that we still do not have concrete confirmation of the kind of screens it will be running, the actual final price, or even the chips that it'll be running. But considering what we know about how they've made their handhelds in the past, I feel like it's a pretty safe bet that they will be using the H700 chipset, and it's going to be sitting at a price of around anywhere between $60 to like $90. The higher end of their more budget-friendly line of handheld. It is a dual screen handheld, so it is, a little bit more complicated. The hinge mechanism, having two screens is definitely going to increase costs, so it's definitely going to skew on the more expensive side of things. So it's probably going to, like I said, enter between $60 to $90. It could very well end up being the fact that it is $99.99, which if it is at that price point, its competition is going to be pretty stiff around that almost exactly $100 price point. I'll be honest, a lot of Anbernic's more budget-friendly offerings that are hovering around that $100 price point are looking a little worse for wear, especially when you compare them to the upcoming iNeo Air Mini device, which is supposedly going to be able to run things like 3DS, all because it has a higher tier and more powerful chipset around the same price. I would argue that they probably just should have bitten the bullet to say and just thrown in a slightly more powerful chipset, use Android, and overall have a significantly better handheld, and then that would be a great competition against the iNeo Air Mini. That is to say though, if it's like $50, that is a solid case for this handheld, but that is probably not going to be the case. It's just a darn shame if this device is not able to run 3DS games, because that's like 50% of the reason why people would want this kind of a thing. The other 50% being Nintendo DS games, which have been able to run quite well on the H700 chipset. They ran well on the old RK36 whatever chipset that they were using before this. So I'm not too surprised that it will be running those fairly well. But like I said before, if it can't run 3DS games, that is a huge downside. At the moment, as I've stated before, it is mostly speculation of what we got right now. But judging by how quickly Anbernic turns around this kind of stuff in terms of release and just how quickly we get information, I suspect we'll probably end up seeing this device release in sometime in November, with more details coming about the device in the coming weeks. I think this is a really good move for Anbernic to make. This is a great way to shake up that $100-ish category, especially with such a unique feature set that really hasn't been seen at this price range. Because even if the Air Mini is going to be significantly more powerful or capable of just better emulation in general, there could still be a case made for the RGDS. That being if you're more interested in DS games, obviously. And if there's some sort of multitasking functionality that can be enabled in while you're like watching a video on the bottom and playing a game on the top, or vice versa. That could be something that some people are interested in. Those of a particularly Zoomer TikTok brain rot proclivity, especially if you love watching your Subway Surfers and playing a game at the same time. I know for me personally, whenever I play games on my desktop, one of my favorite things to do is, have the main game on the monitor, and then on my second monitor, have like a YouTube video player, so like music or something. And I just find that very entertaining and makes me have a lot of fun. And if you could do that on this RGDS device, that would be kind of sick. Though, if they do, like I mentioned before, go down the route of using a Linux-based operating system, like they do for pretty much all of their sub-$100 devices, that could end up being more burdensome for them to develop. Android just has an easier time handling these things a lot better, and considering Anbernic, at least to my understanding, makes their own Linux-based operating system, trash though it may be, they do try, so maybe it'll have some sort of, multitasking functionality, but I highly doubt it. I do eagerly look forward to when we get some more information in the coming weeks about this device. Especially, I want to know what it's running in terms of its specs, because if it is in fact running the H700 chipset like all their other sub-$100 handhelds, it will end up being a little disappointing for not being able to run the full catalog of the Nintendo DS and 3DS libraries. The other kind of video game system you might want to emulate on a dual screen device that would be like Wii U, but that requires a significantly more powerful device and requires you having like at least 4 GB of memory, and the emulator itself is highly experimental and pretty much only works with modern Snapdragon chips. So it's not too surprising that it won't be able to run that in any regard. I would love to hear what you guys think about this though. Are you planning on getting this device? Are you excited for what this means for the rest of the industry? And what do you think they're going to be running in terms of chipsets? I would love to hear what you guys think about this down below. Don't forget to leave a like, comment, and subscribe. All of the social media garbage down below. And if there are any affiliate links down there, they go a long way in helping out the channel. And last but not least, have a wonderful day.